ladies and gentlemen, and human beings, for Patti Smith.
It's a... Oh, now I got to be good. Now I got to do something. Oh, no. It's a spring day at Adrian College. I'm 19 years old, and I'm in my room in the Chi Omega complex. Pick up the phone, get an outside line to call my mom. Okay, Mom, tomorrow is the appointment. Oh, honey, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud you made it. I know, Mom, but I'm kind of scared. I don't know what's going to happen. So maybe could you tell, oh, honey, it's horrible, but every woman has to get their annual pap smear and pelvic exam. It's awful, it's horrible, but just lay back, look up, and count the dots on the ceiling, and it'll be over in a minute, and then I won't have to worry about you getting pregnant. I have a college boyfriend, and we're having sex. And right, and and I'm terrified every time because I don't trust condoms, and I've always known I don't want kids, but I've also always known that for me to get pregnant would ruin my mother's life. Everybody would know she failed. Everyone would know. I need to get this pill. I need to get this birth control pill, and I have to get this pelvic and this pap. So I go the next day, I check in, I go to the room, and I take off, there's that paper/plastic robe that I neatly fold my bra and panties, put in between the t-shirt and jeans, and I hop up, I was taught well, and I hop up on the bench, or the cot, and it's harder than I thought it would be. So I'm like, okay, distract myself. So I look, okay, there's the cabinets and the tables and the cotton balls and oh my God. There's a metal tray with things on it I've never seen before. Kind of a tongue dispenser, but not really. A brush, that like miniature version of what you clean your toilet with. And those metal duck lip looking things look really hard and cold. And oh my God, are those gonna be inside of me in a few minutes? Oh my God. And before I can answer that question for myself, the doctor and nurse come in. And the doctor, he's younger, than I thought. He introduces himself. Nurse introduces herself without any preamble whatsoever. She's like, all right, honey, scooch on down. And I scooch, and then she says, nope, more. And I scooch, and a little more. And I feel like my butt is hanging up. But I know she's like, hey, perfect. Okay, so I lay back. And I hear my mother's voice in my ears. Just count the dots on the ceiling, get the pills, don't have to worry. So I lay back, and there's the dots, and I start counting 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, he's touching me. He's touching me down there. There's a bright light. The doctor's between my legs, and he's touching me down there, and he's got a glove, and it's so dry, and it's skidding across my vulva and my skin, and it's so horrible. And I sit up, and the lady's like, lay back down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots. Oh God, it's a metal thing and it's going in and it hurts. Oh God, it's going in, it hurts so bad. It's tearing my pubic hair and he won't stop, he won't. And I kick. I kick out at the doctor. And that is, I wish he had reacted that way. His reaction was he was done. I gotta get this lady out of here. He tears off his gloves, he walks out. And my mind is going in a million different places. Oh my God, I need that pill. I got to get that pill. What just happened? Oh my God, what was that? What was going on? And the nurse says, yeah, honey, you need to calm down. What do you mean calm down? I mean, what? She's like, do you know what was going to happen to you today? No, I didn't know what was going to happen to me today. I've never seen that stuff. I've never had that happen. And it hurt. It hurt so bad. Couldn't you have used like lubrication or something? It just hurt so bad. And I'm crying, and she just looks at me. She says, "No, that's not possible." And my mind is just all over. I said, "I need those pills. I got to have those pills." And she goes, "Well, if you promise to come back next month, we'll get you a 1-month pack." So okay, all right, okay, got the pills. Cool, all right. Worry about it next month. I go home. I go back to the room. I call my mom. I couldn't do it, Mom. There's a million words behind that sigh. What do you mean you couldn't do it, Patti? I couldn't do the exam, Mom. It hurt. I didn't know what was going to happen to me, and it hurt. Did you count the dots on the ceiling, Patti? Yes, Mom. I swear to God, I counted the dots. But it hurt. I didn't know what. So now I suppose I have to worry about you getting pregnant. No, I got the pill. I got a month. A month? I'll go back. And I go back the next month, and it's the same thing. It hurts so bad, and it's so dry, and I don't understand. But I get a 3-month, so I get like a reprieve. I get a 3-month birth control prescription. And then I go back when I'm 20, and I don't get a prescription. But it's okay, because boyfriend's broken up with me, so I'm not having sex anyway, so it's okay now that I didn't get the pill. It's okay. So now I'm 21, and I have a new boyfriend. This time I go to a clinic by my house, and it's a woman nurse practitioner. And I only have to strip from the bottom, not the whole thing, so that's good. And I just am covering my legs. And I have a t-shirt on, and she sees my Storytellers and says, I'm a Chi Omega. Oh my God. We do the handshake, and I'm like, we're bonded. So I don't tell her about the past issues. And she says, all right. And I lay back, and I start to count the dots. And I count the dots, but it's the same thing. And this time, she doesn't throw off the gloves and leave. She leans in, and she says, what happened to you? Who hurt you? Who abused you? Who raped you? Oh my God, what? No, what? Okay, so was it a male relative or an uncle or a neighbor? Who did this to you? And my mind is, what do you mean? And I'm scooching back away, and she says, was it your grandfather or your father? And I'm just ready to scream, you're impugning the memory of my dead grandfather, the best man, and my live father, who are the best men. They were the only men in my life growing up. They never hurt me in any way, shape, or form. And I'm trying to tell her this, and she's shaking her head. She's not hearing me. She says, well, okay, I need you to go to therapy to try to suss out what happened. There ain't nothing to suss. But she says the magic words. She says, I'll give you a prescription for the birth control pill if you go to counseling. So I go to counseling, and that lady doesn't hear me either. But that boyfriend and I are broken up now. And I make it through the rest of college, and I make it through law school using condoms and fear. But then when I'm 27, 2 things happen. I meet the man who will be my first husband. Don't know he's going to be the first husband at the time, but know the man I'm going to marry. So I have to do this. I need this prescription. But maybe even more importantly, I found out my great-grandma Siegel, who we always said died of women's problems, died of ovarian cancer. And now I know great-grandma Siegel, so now I need to do this. So I go to a Beaumont, like a satellite office of Beaumont. And she's a really nice woman, and I tell her I'm upfront about what happened. So she knows, and I start to count the dots, and as soon as I feel that metal, and she just says, nope, okay, you know what we're gonna do for you? We're gonna do this under anesthesia. And I'm like, say what? Like, what, you can do that? And she says, oh yeah, you have great insurance. It'll pay for everything. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that is what we do, ladies and gentlemen. We knock me out. She does the exam. I get a birth control for a year and a clean bill of health. I do it the next year. And I do it the next year. And I do it the next year. And then the insurance stops paying for it. So I have to start from scratch. And same thing happens. I get sent back to counseling. And this woman, I swear to God, she wanted me to be a rape survivor because that she could fix. That she knew how to deal with. A rape incest survivor. Me, she didn't know what the fuck to do with me. She didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. And you know what? I didn't know what was wrong with me. I kept trying to equate this to the dentist. It's a joke, people who are afraid to go to the dentist. So we have laughing gas and happy gas, and we'll give you light sedation. And I kept saying, why can't we do this for this as a matter of course? And everyone's like, no, can't do that, can't do that. What's wrong with you, Patti? If you can have sex, you can do this. What is wrong with you? Get through the exam. Every woman goes through this exam. Stop being a spoiled only child, Patti, and count the goddamn dots. Now I'm 32, and I've made a decision. First husband supports. What I said earlier is true. Never wanted to have kids, so I get a tubal ligation, and that doctor says, hey, you know what? We can do the pelvic when we do tie your tubes, and that's what happens. And then things happen. I change careers. I stop being a lawyer. I start being a special ed teacher just up the street in Detroit. And that marriage falls apart. I meet the man that becomes my second husband. And I have a wonderful life. Like, I couldn't ask for a better community and friends and family and career and husband to be. And I realized something, and that is that I want to do this exam for me. I don't need the pill. Twos are tied, right? I don't need that. I want to do this for me, and also for great-grandma Siegel, because maybe if she had had this, she would have lived longer than 48, and I want to live longer than 48. So I find Women Safe Health. That's like literally right in the name, Women Safe Health, 2 miles from my house in Ann Arbor. And I go and I bring Ken, my fiance, now husband, with me. And you walk in and it's like walking into a lavender forest. This whole entire place smells like lavender. There are fountains bubbling. They greet you with slippers, Oreos, coffee. And she literally had a robe that was terry cloth and warm, like it was fresh out the dryer. You sit in a chair with a little foot thing, and I'm like, this is nice. And Dr. Shadigian comes in. Dr. Shadigian, the OB-GYN, comes in, and she says, introduces herself. And she says, well, tell me what brought you here? And 20 years of fear and anger and hurt and frustration just bubbled over out of my mouth. And I'm going on and going on. And I ended with, and if everybody always says, if you can have sex, you can do this. And she's like, wait a minute, Patti. What about this is like sex other than the use of a vagina? And I was like, oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I don't actually have an answer for that. And she says, all right, tell me what you need, what would help. And I said, well, some kind of lubrication, because it's so dry and the gloves just hurt so bad and it's so uncomfortable. But they always said that they couldn't do that. And she looks at me and she says, no, Patti, they wouldn't do that. Of course you can use lubricant. Of course I can do that. What else? The laying back, it's so vulnerable. You have your feet in those stirrups and they're so uncomfortable and it's vulnerable. If I could just sit up, but they always said you couldn't do that. So, and she's like, she walks over to her cot and like sits up the thing to a 90-degree angle and says, of course you can sit up. They wouldn't do that. What else? And I'm like, it's the speculum. It's so cold and it's metal and it's so awful. And I wanted to use something maybe smaller, but they always said that they wouldn't do that for me. I caught myself. I said, wait a minute, no, they wouldn't. And she said, you're right, they wouldn't. And she said, I have plastic, I'll warm it up, I'll put lubrication on it. And I said, okay. And then she has my fiance husband, come back in the room. And we talk, and she says, you know what, you want to do it today, let's do it. You don't, come back. And I'm like, well, I got the robe, and I've had like the Oreos and the coffee. So you're here, I'm here, this is here, let's do this, okay? So I hop on the cot, which is of course comfortable. And there's a fountain bubbling in here as well. There's still the lavender. She put something on my wrists to help calm me down. And I'm sitting there and she puts the thing up and so Ken is holding my hand, looking at anything but me. But like he's there, he's here tonight. And she says, okay. And she says something to me no one's ever said before. She says, may I touch your right knee? And I'm like, of course, yeah. And then she says, okay, may I now touch your right thigh? And I'm like, yeah. And then she says, may I touch your stomach? And I realize, oh my God, she's asking my consent. She's asking me to give her permission to do anything. And she keeps asking, I say yes. Sometimes I pause, but I say yes. And we go, and we go, and we go, and we go. And then there's a poke, and there's this, and there's that. And she turns away and says, okay, Patti, you're done. I got the sample. And I said, what? And she said, you're done. You did wonderful. You were perfect. I got the sample. And I realized I was crying. I'm not really a crier. And I realized I was crying. And I said, oh my God, I did it. It took me 20 years to get there, to find that compassion and kindness and someone who would listen. And the thing is, I put this story together like 4 or 5 years ago. And since then, as I'm sure you know, there's been some things happening in the United States about women and reproductive health and women's health. And this is the thing. You have people in the Supreme Court and now in Arizona, and they're making decisions about women's bodies. And see, here's the thing. Dr. Shadigian trusted me. She heard me, and more importantly, made sure I was heard and made sure I trusted myself. These folks, these judges, they don't give a shit about us. They are not asking for our permission. They're not asking, for us to say, they not only don't trust us, they don't trust us to trust ourselves and know what's best for our bodies. And so maybe that's why it took me 20 years to find someone who trusted me to trust myself and love myself. And she never once asked me to count the dots on the ceiling. Thank you.
Patti Smith.